Let's start with the Press Gallery dinner, or as they call it in Ottawa, Nerd Prom. The big news this year was that Justin Trudeau took part. It's the first time in a decade that a sitting prime minister got in on all the fun. Emily, I'm going to start with you. What did you make of Justin Trudeau, stand-up comedian?
I'm so ready to just watch Justin Trudeau do some work. I am so ready to see him not be a media darling, smarmily making fun of this whole celebrity circus that he's in. And in fact, the one time we have seen him do work, he assaulted someone. It's a very, very complicated thing that he's continuing to do this sort of monkey dance. And I would really just like to see him just be a somber politician getting the job done for once, just for
You're so
a
Canadian.
month.
Oh my God.
Rachel, you were laughing. I'm not sure if it was at Justin's stand-up or at what Emily said. How did you feel about
these things are always. We talked about the White House Correspondents' Dinner a little while back, and these things always have such a potential to be super cringy because comedy is hard and perhaps even harder than politics to pull off. So, I think what's interesting about the Press Gallery dinner is that you have representatives from all parties that got up, which I think sort of it changes the mood a little bit. I mean, I agree with Emily to the point that I'm at a point of Justin Trudeau saturation. I thought that it was interesting that that Sophie Trudeau came out and kind of pushed back at some of her critics. It's always hard in those kinds of things to figure out whether people are making fun of the press or making fun of themselves. I think it's hard for the Trudeaus because I think they do hold themselves in fairly high regard. And so it's not always clear if they're sort of poking a pin in it or if they are if they're mocking the media for mocking them.
Interesting.
These perfect creatures.
Stephen, what did you think of Justin's routine?
Well, like we said the last time, is there's a bit of the embarrassing cousin at the wedding going on here. There's definitely something. I mean, I just find it fascinating because it doesn't really seem to hurt him. Right, this new kind of viral politics that we're seeing, this use of social media that he has mastered. I'm a little confused. I mean, it might be because the Conservatives and the NDP are not competing with him. They have not found anyone who is even knows where the battlefield is, never mind is willing to join him on that battlefield. Or it might be part of the nature of viral politics that when your good stuff hits, it just goes massive. And when you embarrass yourself like that, or the previous time where he was doing the one-arm push-ups, it just kind of dies.
Doesn't go anywhere, yeah.
And so that the positives, when you win, you win, and when you lose, you don't really lose. So it's I don't know if it may be that, or it may just be that they have no opposition. But it is a bit confusing because as you say, it was watching that thing. I actually had the feeling do I miss Stephen Harper? Is there some part of me that wants someone who would never go to such a thing?
Well, Justin Trudeau wasn't the only one who got up there. Tom Mulcair, the outgoing NDP leader, made headlines for his routine, which included a number of F-bombs, which we will censor here to protect the tender ears and sensibilities of our listeners. Here he is.
Now, it's great to be here at the Press Gallery dinner. And you know why? Because unlike every other person here tonight, I give zero.
A surprise there, political leader, working blue, going Andrew Dice Clay. Yeah, is this on brand for the NDP? What does this say about?
What I think is interesting is that one of the criticisms, and I think actually Sophie Trudeau sort of kind of poked at Tom Mulcair about anger management.
Yeah,
is that which I think was actually pretty great. I think that part of me is Tom Mulcair was actually kind of funny and self-deprecating, and I felt like if he was, maybe we could have seen some of that on the campaign trail. There is sometimes the way in which you maybe get an insight into people. I mean, I know someone else is writing their material for them, but it was actually kind of nice to see Tom Mulcair take himself not so seriously.
You do have to find someone to write that material, right?
Yeah,
that's hard too.
It's true,
right? Especially with these kind of sticks. I mean, I just find it a bit. The thing I did find a bit sad was it's we're really imitating the Americans again, aren't we?
Yeah.
Is this really? Because in America, there's an actual reason for it because the press and the politicians are so hostile, and there is such a furious struggle between the two of them. Whereas here, I really don't feel like there is.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like there's another key difference in that with the White House dinner, the White House manufactures like a big production with a concert, and they distribute it themselves. Like it streams out from the White House.
Right.
For us, it was like, let's have a bunch of journalists come laugh at some politicians, and then have the journalists like just lavishly report on how great and fun it was. And I'm kind of like,
Well, let's dig into some of these issues. Rachel, you said it's kind of nice from time to time to see the lighter side, self-effacing side of political leaders. But is there something uncomfortable about seeing politicians and reporters joking around together? And
well, I mean, I think that there is. I mean, at the the New York Times, for instance, doesn't go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It says it's too cozy a relationship. We won't go. We draw that line. I think the press corps in Canada is so much smaller. I mean, I think things are less formal here. It's smaller. I think it's fair to have some concerns about the press and the government getting too cozy in a way. I also think that when it comes to satire, Canada also has the tradition, even longer than the U.S. and The Daily Show, but things like, this hour has 22 minutes and air farce. And I think sometimes, though, even those shows that, are kind of there to poke fun can sometimes also get a bit cozy when, they'll bring somebody on who they've been poking fun with. And then, really the politician ends up being a preening exercise for the politician as opposed to a takedown.
Well, quickly here, we reached out to Jennifer Ditchburn, who was a longtime Parliament Hill reporter, now the editor-in-chief of Policy Options. And here's what she had to say about exactly that issue.
I guess I think sometimes it's unfair when people accuse reporters of being too cozy with politicians for the simple fact that they can have a drink together or have a dinner together. I mean, I don't know anyone who would go to work every day and want to be in sort of 100%, 24/7 constant aggressive battle with people. Most reporters that I know, I'd say 99.9%, can separate out the work that they do in holding the government to account and just sort of the day-to-day niceties and civility that you need to be able to stay sane in a legislature or on Parliament Hill.
So, Stephen, she's kind of pushing back there and saying that these events do help, even in Canada, maintain a level of civility and sanity in politics. What do you think about what Jennifer says?
Well, I really don't think it's the job of the press to be civil. I mean, I think it's the job of the press to be rude, actually. But I think, part of the context is you have to remember that we've just come out of a 10-year period where the Prime Minister had such loathing for the press and such contempt and really had no respect whatsoever for the role of the free press in a democracy. And and so to actually have politicians on the other side who treat you like a human being is a bit of a relief. Ambrose made that joke herself, right? Like Stephen Harper loved humanity; he just hated people, right? And she was talking to an audience who got that joke perfectly. Yeah. So I think there is the shift that's happened in Canadian politics. Was also a shift that's happened with, the Canadian press and its relationship to Canadian politics. And I think that event kind of captured that.
Yeah, but for me, it's like the way that the event was reported on, it's not about readers and voters. It was literally just about how fun it was for these people in this room who happened to all be journalists and politicians. That was the thing that I actually kind of agree. You should be able to have a drink with one of your sources or to have a drink with someone that you've profiled.
Oh, yeah.
Like civility, sure, dinner, fine. But where do the readers and voters come into whatever this was supposed to be?